The moment my mother-in-law mentioned her upcoming trip to Conan, I couldn't believe my ears. "A trip to Conan?" she repeated with a smile, completely unaware of the storm building inside me. It didn't make sense. We were barely scraping by, struggling to pay off a huge debt, yet she was planning a vacation. Worse, she was going alone, despite the fact that I'd been sending her money every month to help with her living expenses. I couldn't hold back any longer. "How can you afford to travel when we've been sending you money to help pay the bills?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. My mother-in-law looked confused, her brow furrowing as though she didn't understand why I was upset. But I wasn't about to let it go. This wasn't a joke. This was our life. "My name is Amy, and I'm 35 years old. 5 years ago, I married Kevin, and since then, we've been living what I thought was a peaceful life. We both work regular jobs at small companies, our income's modest, but enough to get by. Then, about 6 months ago, Kevin's father passed away. It was a difficult time for all of us, but especially for Kevin's mother. She had always been kind to me, helping out whenever she could. But after Kevin's father died, everything changed. One night, not long after the funeral, Kevin brought up a topic that caught me off guard. "Amy," he said over dinner, "I think we need to start sending money to my mom every month." I looked at him in surprise. "Why?" I asked. "Your sister lives with her, and she earns more than both of us combined. Besides, didn't your father leave some money behind?" Kevin sighed heavily, avoiding eye contact. "Yeah, but most of Dad's savings went to hospital bills and funeral costs. Mom is in a lot of debt now. She hasn't told Sarah, my sister, about it, because she doesn't want to burden her. I just feel like it's my responsibility to help." I sat there in stunned silence. Debt? His mother? I couldn't wrap my head around it. "But Kevin," I said cautiously, "we're not in the best financial shape either. We've got our own bills and debts. How are we supposed to help her?" Kevin's expression softened as he looked at me. "I know, Amy. I wouldn't ask if I didn't think it was important. I'm just asking for a little help. She's done so much for us. Please." I couldn't argue with that. Kevin's mother had always been there for us, whether it was offering advice, cooking meals, or giving us a little extra cash when we were short. It didn't feel right to turn our backs on her now, not when she needed us. So after some hesitation, I agreed. From that day on, Kevin and I became stricter about our budget. We cut back on everything: groceries, entertainment, and even our medical expenses. Our lives became a routine of saving and sacrificing. Kevin started working late nights, and I barely saw him anymore. The financial pressure weighed on both of us, but we didn't talk about it much. We just kept going, convinced we were doing the right thing. Then one day, I fell ill. It was just a fever at first, but it didn't go away. After 2 days of feeling miserable, I told Kevin that I needed to see a doctor. His response shocked me. "Are you sure it's necessary?" he asked. "It's just a fever. We should save the money." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Kevin, what if it's something serious? We can't ignore this." He frowned. "We've got fever medicine at home. Just take that and rest. Going to the hospital is a waste of money." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We were saving so much that I couldn't even go to the doctor when I was sick. But I didn't have the strength to argue. I took the medicine and stayed in bed for 3 days, too weak to fight back. As the weeks passed, my resentment began to grow. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Kevin was always working late, and even though we were supposedly saving money, our situation never seemed to improve. I didn't know what was going on, but I was too exhausted to question it. Then came the day that shattered everything. Kevin and I visited his mother's house one weekend to check on her. As soon as we walked in, I noticed the suitcases and travel bags scattered around the living room. My heart sank. "Are you going somewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother-in-law beamed at me. "Oh, yes, I'm going to Conan for a vacation," she said cheerfully. "Sarah is coming with me. You should come too, Amy. I felt the room spinning. A trip to Conan? I repeated, disbelief washing over me. How could she afford this when we were sending her money every month to help pay off her supposed debts? My mind raced with anger and confusion. Without thinking, I blurted out, "You're going on a vacation? How can you even think about traveling when we've been struggling to save money to send to you?" My mother-in-law's smile faltered. "Amy, what are you talking about? I don't have any debts." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned to Kevin, component placement, who had gone pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Kevin, what is she talking about? You told me she had debt. You said that's why we needed to send her money." Kevin stammered, I, it's not like that." "What is it like then?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Explain yourself." Finally, after a long, painful silence, Kevin muttered, "I've been using the money for something else." "Something else?" My heart pounded in my chest as I asked, "What have you been doing with the money?" Kevin looked down at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "I've been going to nightclubs," he admitted quietly. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Nightclubs? All the sacrifices I'd made, all the scrimping and saving, and he had been blowing our money on clubs? "You've been lying to me this whole time?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "You made me believe your mother was in debt, and all the while you were spending our money on clubs?" Kevin tried to defend himself, but I wasn't listening anymore. The betrayal was too deep. I had trusted him, supported him, and in return, he had lied to me. My whole world felt like it was crumbling around me. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Kevin's head snapped up. "Amy, no, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I interrupted, my eyes filled with tears. "You lied to me. You took advantage of me, and I can never forgive you for that." The room fell into an eerie silence. Kevin's mother and sister stood frozen, unsure of what to say. Kevin, on the other hand, was on his knees, begging for forgiveness. But it was too late. I left that day, moving out of our home and filing for divorce soon after. The process was quick, and I made sure to get back every penny Kevin had taken from me. He had to pay compensation, and as a result, his life became a nightmare of endless overtime and debt. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life. I found a new apartment, closer to work, and focused on my own happiness. Despite everything, I stayed in touch with Kevin's mother and sister. They were as horrified by Kevin's actions as I was, and continued to support me throughout the divorce. One day, a few months later, Kevin's mother called me. "Amy, I'm so sorry for everything that happened. I never imagined Kevin would do something like that." "It's not your fault," I assured her. "I've moved on." "I'm glad to hear that," she said softly. "You're a strong woman, Amy. I know you'll be okay." Her words brought me comfort. As painful as the past few months had been, I knew she was right. I had come through the other side stronger than ever. A few weeks later, Kevin's mother, sister, and I joked about taking that long-planned trip to Conan. But this time, it felt like more than a joke. It felt like a new beginning, a fresh start in a life no longer weighed down by lies and betrayal. As I looked out at the horizon, I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to live my life on my terms, surrounded by people who truly cared about me. The chapter with Kevin had closed, and I was ready to begin a new one filled with hope, strength, and a future where I could be truly happy.